Welcome to the Wild Hope Rising podcast. I'm your host, Sunny Cain, and I'm so glad you're here. I want to help you be wildly you. And believe it or not, you're already her. So I invite you to listen in. I'll help you move through the wilderness, no matter how you got here. So let's lean in, ignite your purpose, and discover what you're made of. Buckle up, my friend. It's time for Wild Hope. Okay, girls, so glad you're back to the podcast this week. I know you are busy in your life, although I hope you are taking the invitation that is summer to be intentional about some rest in your life and some play in your life. Regardless of whether you are a person that gets the summer off or not, I think that there is something ingrained in us in these rhythms that we built in childhood where we would go to school and then we would have the summer off. I think that's kind of still ingrained in us. And so summer is this great time for us to enter into play and enter into rest and all of those things. So I hope that you are doing that and slowing down the hustle of your life. And if you do not slow down and be intentional about rest and about play, they just don't happen because we can fill our lives with busyness. And I know it's what we do. And in the midst of that busyness, one thing that I think women really constantly I hear on their lips, or I see it all over social media, is this idea of wrestling with the feeling of being overwhelmed. Now, what I want to set the table for in our conversation today is there's a lot of reasons that we wrestle with feeling overwhelmed, but I kind of want to define this term for just a moment. When I am talking about overwhelmed, I think that there are these seasons where we are sometimes overwhelmed because we are experiencing a lot of big emotion when it comes to walking through seasons of heartache. And so we are overwhelmed with grief or with sorrow or with pain, all of those kind of things. So that is not the kind of overwhelm that I am talking about today. I am talking about the kind of overwhelm that kind of moves you into a state of being paralyzed, of getting stuck. And, here at Wild Hope Rising, we talk about getting stuck in wilderness seasons. And one of the ways we spin our wheels in these wilderness seasons is when that feeling of overwhelm shows up. And again, we're not talking about the kind of overwhelm when you're overwhelmed to the point of grief or sorrow. We'll talk about that another time. We're talking about that overwhelm where you feel like you are stretched beyond your capacity, this feeling that rises up and it just kind of puts pressure in your chest and you're like, I just can't. And it's a common feeling. In fact, I was looking at these reports recently that there is something to be said that like 70 to 80% of women report experiencing stress and that overwhelm on a regular basis. It was from the American Psychological Association survey. Then I read the National Institute of Mental Health reported that women are twice as likely as men to experience overwhelm that leads into anxiety. And perhaps this is because we live with, as women, this multitasking and role juggling that we constantly, I've never met a woman that wasn't wearing multiple hats on some level. And all of these hats, they increase the emotional load that we carry. And sometimes our overwhelm comes because we have a tendency to get overcommitted. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that, but the pressure that we carry as women to not only do all of the things, but do them well, I think that's one of the contributing factors. Also, our desire to avoid disappointing people. So we say yes when we actually mean no. And sometimes it's in the middle of life transitions and the extra weight that those life transitions bring, whether it's caregiving for aging parents or moving into an empty nester season or career changes, raising kids. These can increase the strain and leave us feeling overwhelmed. And if you're like me, and you're in this crazy space of perimenopause, menopause, it can be your hormones that cause that whole overwhelm feeling to show up. These hormonal fluctuations can actually affect our stress tolerance and our ability to regulate our emotions. But ladies, let's be honest. Sometimes it's because we refuse to ask for help. We are overwhelmed. It's this state that we experience when the demands that we believe are on us exceed the capacity that we believe is within us. And the pressure that we feel, it displaces our peace. I want to say that again because this is the definition that we're going for when we're talking about overwhelm. And we got to talk about this, ladies, because it is keeping us stuck in wilderness seasons. And some of you are praying for a life raft when you actually just need to learn how to get practical skills for how to move through when things like overwhelm show up and cause you to want to shut down. So that definition is overwhelm is the state that we experience when the demands that we believe are on us exceed the capacity that we believe is within us. And this pressure displaces our peace. And when we are here, oh my goodness, it is crazy town. It impacts our minds. You kind of can get this level of brain fog, don't we? Where we can't even think straight. We have a difficulty concentrating, making decisions. We have what I would call the attack of the thought bubbles. You have this one little thought bubble about how, oh, I need to do laundry. Another little thought bubble. Oh, I forgot I got to handle that. So you write it on your little to-do list and you jam it in your purse. And then this thought bubble comes up of, oh goodness, I forgot I got a grocery shop. It's all of these thought bubbles that fill your mind, and you can only handle so many thought bubbles. That will cause us to not only have overthinking, but those thought bubbles, they leave us feeling completely out of control, and we are gonna snap. Like we're just on the edge of snapping. And honestly, it can lead to this sense of dread or fear that everything is just too much. This also impacts us physically, though, right? It brings a level of fatigue because when you are thinking that hard all the time and you are having that many thoughts, then you are dealing with overwhelm. You've got fatigue. You are tired. You have a headache constantly. You've got tight shoulders, a rapid heartbeat. You've got trouble sleeping, or maybe you're oversleeping as a result. Because sometimes we can't even lay in our beds without the thought bubbles continuing to come. We're just regularly hearing the thought bubbles. And if that is you before you go to sleep, that is something to not just keep dealing with, suffering through. Maybe it's time for you to develop a new strategy when you go to bed, putting a little notebook by your bed, or practicing new words when you've got those thoughts coming and you start recognizing you're going down the path of overwhelm and those thoughts will not go away. Actually taking a moment and saying, okay, I hear you, brain. I hear you. You're attempting to remember a lot of details. And I am going to choose to rest right now. I want to shut this off right now. We'll come back again tomorrow. Have a little moment with yourself. For some women, they have to actually go into their little notebooks and they got to write that thought down to catch it tomorrow. And then maybe there is some level of peace, a song you could listen to, something to begin to quiet that, but don't just live with it. Try to find solutions for it because our sleep matters a lot. And your lack of sleep will lead you to feeling more overwhelmed more often. Like it can crazy train you. But so this impacts us physically. And this physically, I also see women when we are in overwhelm. For me, I actually have a change in my appetite. I don't feel hungry at all because I am too busy being a machine and running hard at it. And some people end up with that stress, that overwhelm in their gut. They get stomach aches or all of that. This also impacts our behavior, right? So this is impacting our mind. It's impacting our emotions. It's impacting us physically. It also impacts our behavior. We might fall into procrastination. Is that you? You feel so overwhelmed that you're just going to deal with it tomorrow. You're practicing complete avoidance, pretending that there isn't the feeling of overwhelm. I'm just going to avoid everything that I have to do. Like I'm not going to open the bills. And I'm not going to answer any of my text messages. I'm going to avoid all of it. I'm going to ignore everybody because I'm just too overwhelmed. It impacts our behavior, and it actually leaves us living beneath who we want to be, the type of women that we want to be. And I'm not suggesting that you have to be all things to all people. But what I mean is that we are going into avoidance patterns because of overwhelm. And then we end up overreacting to small things, or we withdraw from responsibilities. In this place, we begin numbing through scrolling, binging, and other escapes, insert your vice of choice. And this can whack out our spirit as well. Because in this place, when we sit in overwhelm too long, we begin questioning our purpose. We start feeling disconnected from God, and we may actually stop listening to God because ain't nobody got time for that. We're too busy. Or we may allow our emotions in this place to convince us that He has abandoned us, even though He is very near. And buried under all that, it actually impacts our perception of self. We start saying things like, I should be able to handle this. I should be able to juggle it all. There's this voice of shame that we allow to kind of sneak into our headspace when we're here. Or we start believing lies about who we are and our capabilities. And how we view this overwhelm, it really matters. So I want to ask you a question today. What do you think your overwhelm is telling you? What is the message when you feel overwhelmed and it shows up in your life? What do you think it is telling you? Does it say it's too much? Does it say I'm not capable? Does it say I should be able to handle all of this? And deeper, I'm wondering, what is your relationship to overwhelm? Is it an invite for you into a shame storm, a place that you beat yourself up because you don't feel like you're juggling all the time? Or you start thinking, I can't even handle life. I cannot do it. So you go into that shame storm, and what first starts as an emotion of, hey, I've got a lot on my plate. That might be a true fact. Now is, I hate myself. I'm no good. I don't have the capacity. All of these kind of things where we beat ourselves up, right? What is your relationship to overwhelm? Is it your drive to work harder and longer? So it shows up, starts talking to you, so you work harder. You work longer hours until you break down or you burn out. Is it what holds you back? Does it keep you small? In my life, overwhelm was my cue to quit for so many years. It just was. It would just show up in my life and I would just back off. I would take the emotion as evidence that I wasn't supposed to be doing what God had before me. But never mind the fact that sometimes overwhelm is just a very natural thing that shows up when we have not yet developed the skill set for what God has sent us into. And the process of the work before you is the way that He is going to develop it within you. So there is a level of sometimes we're just going to build the skill sets along the way. And Sonny, you don't got to quit just because you feel overwhelmed. So what if you were begin to ask God what He is inviting you to see through your overwhelm in those moments that it showed up? What if you asked Him, hey, Lord, what are you inviting me to see in this moment of my overwhelm? Because most often we actually get reflective and think of ourselves, of how we can or cannot get through something. We start really debating whether our emotions are evidence if we're headed in the right direction. And sometimes I'm telling you guys, I'm bringing this up because this pattern in our relationship to overwhelm, this is one of the emotions that keeps us trapped in wilderness seasons that we actually don't need to keep sitting in. And so we've got to do the work to identify these skills, to have awareness of what our relationship with overwhelm is. And I always believe there is a solution. Hey, Lord, what are you inviting me to see through my overwhelm? Because what if your awareness of His presence could help you to use overwhelm, not get rid of it, not have it go away, but to use it for a catalyst for growth, or a catalyst for connection, or a catalyst to get closer to God, or to have community in your life because you get brave enough to ask for help. Here's the crazy thing. Did you know that a synonym for overwhelm is actually overflow? I find this fascinating because when you think of overwhelmed, we usually go to that first definition that I was talking about, where we feel overwhelmed. I'm stretched beyond the demands that are upon me, in contrast with what I believe I have the capacity within me to withstand. That's often what we think of as overwhelm. But what if we were to view overwhelm as overflow? See, one leaves you crushed or consumed by the too much. It feels burdensome. It's driven by expectations, demands, pressure, and it has the voice of exhaustion. That's our overwhelm. But the synonym with overflow, it leaves you abundantly spilling over from the fullness. It feels positive and life-giving. It's driven by joy. It's driven by internal abundance and presence. And it has the voice of empowerment. Isn't that interesting? They're synonyms. So how do we shift from overwhelm to overflow? Well, friend, first we have to bring order. Because see, overwhelm is so often, it is marked by chaos and disorder. Some of you know exactly what I mean because you are in the habit of creating chaos everywhere you go. And a small note on this, but we are not digging into this. Some of you, that's because you grew up in such chaotic environments that you continue to reproduce what you've always known. So chaos and overwhelm is actually your brain's way of staying comfortable. And I know it doesn't feel comfortable. In fact, you're like, she's got to be wrong. Overwhelm is terrible. It's awful. But see, I know it feels terrible, but even feeling terrible in the midst of chaos, even that can feel like a safety zone for our brains that have been hardwired by patterns with which we have walked for a lot of our lives. And so I want to say to you, some of you are reproducing what you've always known. So we don't have to beat ourselves up that we're here. We just have an opportunity to grow. Let's get some new skills. Let's ignite our spirits. And then let's rise and step, because we're the chicks who, though we walk through wilderness seasons, no matter what got us here, we rise again. And we dream again, because God has created us for the wide open, spacious life. Somebody come on, right? So let's stop reproducing the chaos or stop living in it. So the first thing we do in that shifting from overwhelm to overflow is that we bring order. And what I love about this is if you go back all the way to Genesis chapter 1, and I loved learning this week. I can't wait to tell you. Maybe I'm just geeking out over it, but at the one chance that you will love it, I had to bring it to you too. But Genesis 1, chapter 1 says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters." Now we're going to slow down here for a second. We're going to read on in just a moment. What does this have to do with overwhelm? Well, just follow me for a minute, because that little phrase that says the earth was formless and empty, if you move into the Hebrew here, it is a phrase tohu wabohu, and it is used to describe a state of utter disorder. And it essentially means a state of chaos before any form or order is established. And here's the beauty of where we're going next is, first, the Spirit of God was hovering over the surface of the deep. What does it mean that he was hovering? I just want you to get a picture in your mind. Well, that same word hovering is also used in Deuteronomy 32, verses 10 through 12. And it says, "He found him in a desert land, and in the wasteland, a howling wilderness." Hang on. Paint the picture here, ladies. In a wilderness. Oh my goodness. It's speaking our wild hope language. It says, "He encircled him. He instructed him. He kept him as the apple of his eye, as an eagle stirs up its nest, hovers over its young, spreading out its wings, taking them up, carrying them on its wings. So the Lord alone led him." And I almost get goosebumps on this, because there was this place of utter chaos. There was no order. That can feel overwhelming, completely overwhelming. But there was the Spirit of God hovering over, instructing, encircling. So if we are going to move from overwhelm to overflow, the first thing I want you to know is we've got to establish order, but also we've got to know that God is with us. And he is a God of order. We see that in the creation story. And you were created in his image. So you know what? You have exactly what you need planted within you to bring order to your life and show up differently in the midst of overwhelm. And when it shows up, I want you to think of this story. Because what goes on next, this God who hovers over us, God said, "Let there be light." And there was light, and God saw that the light was good. The very first thing he does when there is disorder is he brings light. Ladies, we have got to bring light into why we are overwhelmed. And I'm not trying to do this hard theological stretch here, but I was so inspired by this story of, yes, when I am overwhelmed, may I bring the order of the God who hovers over me, the one who wants to lead me out of this wilderness of my overwhelm. Can I grab him by the hand and allow him to bring light into my situation? What does he want to speak to me through this overwhelm? And then it goes on in the story. He had to divide things up, add order, bring organization. He produced land and all of that. Then he goes on and he creates and he asks things to be fruitful, to multiply. He wants a reproduction. This is teaching us we have got to, in our schedules, work smarter and not harder. Then he creates human life. And in that, we knew that there was community that was needed, and Adam could not do it alone, so he created woman so they could do it together. Okay, there is so much goodness in here, and I will let the word of God just speak to you. I just encourage you, go read Genesis chapter 1 and ask God to bring order to your overwhelm. Because when we bring order to our overwhelm, when we allow light and organization, when we allow things to multiply, right? Think smarter, build systems. That's what I'm talking about. Systems and structure that some of you run from because you think structure is being caged like a butterfly. And what I'm telling you is structure brings freedom. Structure to the chaos is the first step, because when we bring order to our overwhelm, we can begin to overflow, and without it, we overthrow. We overthrow. We quit on ourselves. We back away. And I am not telling you to power through if these are warning lights in your life. But what I am telling you is some of us are stuck in the wilderness because we refuse to think of our overwhelm differently. Ladies, it is time to ignite our hearts with the Spirit of God who hovers over us. And second of all, it is time for us to rise and step, to grow some wilderness skills while we're out here so that we might move forward into the wide open, spacious life that He has been created for. I don't mean to be redundant here, but gosh, there is so much beauty here. I love how the Word of God can speak into our everyday circumstances. He knows what you walk through. So now I want to get into the practical of how we move from overwhelm and overflow. And I want to give you some key questions to ask yourself when overwhelm shows up in your life, because it will, because you're a human being, because there will always be a place where you are reminded of your human limitations. There will always be a place where you are actually reminded that you need to ask for help. There will always be a place where you need to grow a new skill and bring new organization. Next, what I want to talk about is that whole let's turn the light on, right? God said, let there be light. Let's bring light into our situation, because what I know to be true is what you focus on grows, and you will steer where you stare. And you and I have the power to choose how we will view things. We can choose to view them different. If something is driving your overwhelm, first bring light into that thought process in how you choose to see it. What if you began to see your overwhelm, rather than it being your cue to quit, as just your cue for curiosity? This is a process that I want you to think of in anchoring, clarifying, and activating, okay? In the anchor portion of this, and here's the cool thing, Wild Hope Rising, we have a tool for you. So you can listen, don't feel like you gotta jot a ton of notes down. You can go into the show notes and you can actually find this download. So anytime you feel overwhelmed, you will have these questions at your disposal. You can share them with your friends if you want to. I'd encourage you share this episode along with them, because we want this to be an active tool to help you walk through your challenging season. And sometimes the challenge is just ourselves. Okay. So in this anchoring section, the question would begin just for a moment. What am I feeling right now? Let's just acknowledge the overwhelm. What am I feeling and what is contributing to these emotions? Sometimes this is a brain dump session. Well, I've got a lot on my plate. Aha, it's okay to notice I'm feeling this way because I have a lot on my plate. Next question. What am I needing in this moment? Okay, so you have a lot on your plate. You're feeling stretched. You're feeling overwhelmed. What am I actually needing in this moment? This is a very hard question for us to answer. We're terrible at identifying what we actually need. And what you need is not that cute dress or those cute shoes on Amazon. It's not the cinnamon roll that you think you need. But what do you need? Is it peace? Is it encouragement? Is it a nap? Most spiritual thing that you can ever do is take a nap, knowing all of it will be there, unless you're a person who is an over-napper because you are avoiding life by napping, okay? Do you just need acknowledgement that what's on your plate is a lot? Okay, ask yourself, what am I needing in this moment? And then you're going to take it a step further. Hey, God, where are you in this moment? And what are you inviting me to see right now? God, I'm needing, and whatever you thought you came up with, encouragement. Maybe you thought you needed peace. God, could you help me to find that today? Could you bring that to me? And maybe you said, what am I needing in this moment? You said, I have no idea. If I knew what I'd need, I wouldn't be so overwhelmed. Okay, well, bring it before God. Hey, God, I feel overwhelmed. What are you inviting me to see in this moment? And would you help me understand what I'm needing? Would you sit with me in this space? And then you can ask yourself something like, is there something that I'm trying to control that I actually need to release? Because sometimes it's not the things on our to-do list. It's what we've placed their value on, that we are proving our worth through the things that we do. You can ask yourself also, is there another way to think about this? So you feel overwhelmed because it feels like a lot. Is there another way to think about this? Well, there always is. Can I see this as abundance of the beauty of what God has created in my life? Can I break through for just a moment and move into gratitude? See, gratitude is the antidote for that complaining state that we get stuck in. And I know that when you're there, you feel like, oh my goodness, Pollyanna. Yeah, right. That's the last thing that we want to do is take a moment to be grateful. Oh, I'm going to write a gratitude list and it's going to help me. Okay, Sonny, I guess you don't get overwhelmed. I'm going to tell you, friend, I do get overwhelmed. And I don't mean I just get overwhelmed. I'm telling you, I understand the waters of overwhelm because I'm the girl who feels my schedule too much sometimes because I hustle for my worth in seasons. I do. I strive to prove that I'm worthy. And so I know the waters of overwhelm. And what I can tell you is there is always another way to think about it. And how you see it, it really contributes to how you will show up in that, whether it will be your cue to move towards overflowing or whether you will allow overwhelm to shut you down and keep your capacity limited. Because see, overwhelm is an indicator that you are outside your comfort zone. So if you are the kind of woman that wants to grow, you are the kind of woman that wants to move through wilderness seasons and get out of there, it is going to require that you actually enter through the waters of overwhelm because you're leaving your comfort zone. Congratulations, my friend. Overwhelm means sometimes, hey, awesome, I'm growing. That's another way to see it. Awesome, I'm growing. It's a cue for curiosity as we're getting anchored because see, this anchoring section, what it's about is really getting you to slow down and say, what is my overwhelm telling me? What is contributing me to getting here? Rather than your emotion just leading the way in this and dictating your response, instead, you are going to allow yourself to bring logic onto the scene, to bring the Holy Spirit onto the scene, and to help you get a new perspective. Then we're going to move into clarifying. This is the way that you cut through the mental mess and you can recenter your priorities. You're going to ask yourself, is my overwhelm an indicator? Is it the light on my dashboard that service is needed in the vehicle of myself? Friend, are you overextended and overcommitted? Well, let's not feel sorry for ourselves in that. You made your dang schedule. Nobody forced you to build that calendar of yours. So if you're overwhelmed and you're overcommitted, then you can say, what could I do to change this? Could you admit that to your friends? Hey, I wanted to come to your party, but I realized I have overextended myself and I need a little bit of rest. And if she has a problem with it, that's her problem, okay? If we are overextended and overcommitted, you may need to make some changes. Do you exercise your no, or are you the girl that's constantly saying yes? Because what you say yes to, you're actually causing yourself to say no to things that really matter to you. No to things like your self-care. No to things like time with your kid. That time slips through your fingers. Be intentional. Learn now to steward your hours and to say no. Because when you constantly say yes, you're saying no anyways, and you are making compromises to the things that you value the most. I'm telling you, I learned this through the school of hard knocks. Okay, next question. So we said, is overwhelm an indicator that there is service needed? Then ask yourself, what matters most to me in this season? If I'm overwhelmed and I feel stretched and I see that I'm overcommitted and I see that I'm overextended, what matters most to me in this season? What is that? And I'm not talking that you don't have to, you could answer that question with your value. My kids are the most important thing, or this summer, I'm thinking of what matters most to me in the season where I've got a lot on my plate. I'm trying to grow a whole new community as well as I have a new position at work. So I feel that stretch. But what matters to me in this season? My kids are out for summer. It matters that I build memories with them. That is my top priority. And so I am making sure that I keep that at the center of my mind so that I be careful about what I keep saying yes to. And what doesn't matter to you in this season? What really doesn't hold the value or the priority right now? You don't have to be killing it at everything in every single season. And this is okay, by the way. Maybe it's okay for you to not be killing it at work in this season. Maybe this is a season for you to just be faithful at work and you don't have to be killing it and working at the top of your game. Maybe it's not a season where your housework has to be perfect. Maybe you could release yourself to not have so much pressure on that. You get to decide what matters most and what doesn't. So let's continue in this clarify section to cut through the mental mess as we're recentering our priorities. Another thing you could ask yourself is, what is the one next thing that needs my attention? Just one. Clarify that for yourself because you can't do 42 things at one time. You are a human. You are not a robot, even if you use ChatGPT, okay? What is the one next thing? Or ask another question. What am I avoiding that's adding to the heaviness? Oh my goodness, that is a word. I'm going to tell you. Sometimes the reason the tasks feel heavy is because we are avoiding a heaviness within. There is a feeling that you do not want to feel, so you pack your schedule so full of busy, walking into the overcommitments because your priorities are out of whack. Because at the end of the day, you are missing that soul care. Allowing God to tend to our hearts is really important and sometimes needs to take the top priority on our list. So friend, what are you avoiding that could be contributing to the heaviness? Or if it's not about the spiritual heaviness or the emotional heaviness, what about, is there a task you're avoiding because you don't like doing it, that if you just went and did it, it would stop causing you to overthink and feel so dang overwhelmed? Go do it. Match that to action. Another question, what can I let go of or say no to right now? Or is this task that I'm looking at something that I meant to do? Is it something I can delegate? Or is it something I just need to drop? These are important questions when we're bringing clarity. Now remember, I know it's the fire hose of questions right now, but see, the goal is to get you out of emotion. And we can do that through the power of asking a question so that we have clarity and we are not moving in reaction but response. This is about governing and stewarding our life, what we have been entrusted with, ladies. And some of us need to walk in the power and authority that we have been given as daughters of the King. I do not mean to sound harsh here. I don't mean to sound flippant like this is easy work. It is an intentional practice, and I still bump into overwhelm constantly, weekly. But it's a matter of what I do when that overwhelm shows up. Just ask yourself some questions. Bring clarity, right? Get grounded and anchored in God first and anchored in the truth, anchored in what is happening in your life. And then let's talk about getting into activation. And all of these questions you can have, so don't feel like you got to write them all down. These activating questions help ignite movement in your life. And they can create small wins. And what I know about creating a small win is breakthrough is contagious. When you create a small win, you begin to have some momentum in your life. It carries you on. It makes you excited for what the next thing looks like. Now, listen, I want you to understand, and I know that I'm speaking intensely and passionately right now, but let me tell you where my passion comes from. If you listen to one of our episodes where Tammy and I were beginning to form this Wild Hope Rising, for years we ran into each other. And when we would run into each other, I would say, how you doing? I'm stuck. I was in this pattern for so long. And some of it was that I wouldn't step into action. I was in the overwhelm, or I was in the grief, or I was in all of these places that I could have grabbed God by the hand and I didn't. But you know what? We do the best we can, and then when we know better, we do better. But activation, taking a small step of momentum, of inviting a friend to attend something with me online that was about goal setting. I thought I could probably use a goal in my life. That one tiny step, that one action it was like a snowball effect. It grew. It gave me momentum to get back onto the field of my life, making impact. And that is our heart for you, ladies. And there is something about that momentum that you begin to see the wild hope rising. So let's talk about the activation. Here's a couple of questions here. What would forward movement look like in just the next 10 minutes? This is about popping those thought bubbles we talked about earlier. You get them all filled. If you just take one step, it's like you pop that thought bubble and it gives it room to move about the cabin. Right now, all of a sudden you can think clearer because you just did the dishes. It's so funny. I keep giving housework examples and I realize your life may look a whole lot different than just the housework. It might be things that are piling up at work. It might be really difficult things like running somebody to a hospital that you love, but pop the thought bubble. What is one small step you can take? Here's another one. Who can I text, call, or pray with today to help me not feel so alone in this? Let somebody in. We were designed to do things in life and community, and that requires you take off your superwoman cape that nobody asked you to wear. You can take that off. You can lay it down. God's strength, His power is made perfect in your weakness. It's okay for you to call a friend, phone a friend, use the line, text them. Hey, I could use prayer. Or I know this is crazy. Are you going to the grocery store this week? I could really use toilet paper. And I am so overextended that one small thing feels huge. Could you go there? For me, you know what this looked like? This is so crazy, me having to humble myself. By the time you listen to this, we'll have already had my daughter's graduation party, but this party is a really big deal to me. And it's a big deal because my daughter has walked through a lot of difficult waters over the past few years. There was a moment I wasn't even sure she was going to be able to finish high school because of her chronic illness. And so this is monumental for me. So it's got the emotional tug along with it, but also we haven't had people over to our house for a while. So there's all the tasks that are with it, like getting our yard into a place where we feel like we can create memories and gatherings with people that we love that weekend. And then there's all of the things like grabbing her a dress, getting her through her end of the year things, all of that. And in this, when I think of throwing a party, and what I love is I love creating spaces where people can hold real and honest conversations. That's sort of my specialty. But what I'm not very good at is thinking through the decorations. And I care about them. And my daughter really cares about them. She's an artist. So the decor was feeling really stressful to me. I was completely overwhelmed. I couldn't think of the way to make it work. I ran to Hobby Lobby and I thought, well, I'll just buy some, graduation, some different decor. And my daughter's like, could we do flowers and something pretty instead of the classic graduation? And then I got overwhelmed. I wanted to provide that for her because this is a special day and I feel overwhelmed. So it was time for me to phone a friend. I called my friend Shay. She is incredible at creating beauty. And I asked if we could borrow this thing that she created for her 50th birthday party. And I said, can we borrow that decorations? And she brought infinitely more than I could have imagined. I've got these tubs in my garage. I can't wait to see it come to life. And not only that, when she realized that I was calling her for her specialty, she's excited to come actually decorate my house with me. So look at how I brought that overwhelm with that one small action of asking for help. In another area, food overwhelms me. This is about that delegation that I talked about as I gained clarity. I also reached out to my friend Lindsay, who is good at food, and I said, help, I feel totally overwhelmed. I don't know how to feed these people unless I make pulled pork sandwiches. And if you are a friend of mine, you know pulled pork sandwiches are sort of my way of every party. It's all that I ever make is pulled pork sandwiches. And the funny thing is, I don't even like them that much. I just know how to do it and it feeds a large crowd and you don't have to worry about how many people come because there's always enough pork, okay? That's my one tip in food. But my daughter's gluten-free, all this stuff. It was so overwhelming. So I called my friend Lindsay. She owns a food truck. Guess what? She is going to bring her magic. All she's doing is sending me a list of what to buy. I was like, how do I cook that? What do I do? She goes, don't worry. I'm going to show up. I'm taking the day off work. We're going to make it happen. Listen, I had to reach out and ask for help. Otherwise, I walk into a moment where what I value most is being present with my daughter, celebrating. And I would have run the risk of being disconnected from my body, disconnected from myself because I was so overwhelmed trying to have all of the details. Now, because I've learned this process of my overwhelm is no longer a cue to quit, nor is it a cue to be the power through version of myself where I forget to eat and all of that. No, it is now a cue for curiosity. God, what can I learn here? God, what is going on here? And it is a moment for me to activate tools that I learned in wilderness seasons. And the activation was asking for help. And my prayer is that through that, I am encouraging the people in my life to ask me for help when they're walking through difficult season. In fact, I got an opportunity just a day later. My friend Lindsay needs somebody on her truck in a few weeks. I was able to say yes to help her. So you are giving other people permission when you enter these waters. Friends, ask for help. Here's another question. What would help me exhale or bring relief, even if it was just 5% relief? What would that look like? Is it asking somebody to run an errand for you? Is it giving yourself permission to not have a clean house this week? What is that? Is it actually taking a walk and walking away from your to-do list for a minute? Is it listening to a favorite song of yours? What is it for you? What would bring relief or help you to exhale for a second? Because we allow these things to go away from our lives in our busiest seasons and our overwhelm, and our souls are crying out for them. So maybe get out and play for a minute if that's your way to have relief, or read a book or take a bath or whatever it is. But ask yourself that question. Another great question here is, what's worked before when I felt like this? Can I try that again? Another really great question is, if I believed I was already equipped for this, in this moment, in this overwhelm, what would I do next? Girls, this is bringing logic and emotion together. We're not telling you not to feel your overwhelm. Your overwhelm is there. It could be an indicator light, a warning sign that you're going to burn out or break down if you don't slow down. And ask yourself the important question to get the clarity. If you don't shine God's light, invite God into the situation. Yes, have your emotion, but don't let your emotion be the only dictator of your next decision and how you get through the overwhelm. Marry that with logic, thinking about it, slowing down, using that side of your intelligence, right? Of what God gave you to think about it. Man, I said in a previous episode, we too often allow our emotions to hijack us from things that are actually really important. And it is time, Wild Hope Rising ladies, my wilderness women, it is time to rise and step to grow through these things, because there are things before you that God has assigned to you. Scripture says that when He dreamt us up, when He formed us in our mother's womb, when all of that happened, He knew that there were good works for you and I to do, that He assigned our names to. And if we keep allowing our emotions to take us out every time it gets hard, we're missing out on the thrill of the wide open, spacious life. And I am telling you, I believe that there is always kind of this battle for the wide open, spacious life. I don't think this side of heaven, we're just always standing in it. I think that there is, things like spiritual warfare that keep you from it, things like internal resistance and all of our tapes and limiting beliefs, all of that kind of stuff that keep us from the wide open, spacious life or try to chase us out once we're there. But there is always invitation for the wide open, spacious life, and that is inviting God in for our big emotions, inviting Him in partnership to help us to walk through the difficult seasons. It's inviting Him in to help us to gain new wilderness skills. It's inviting community in. Man, there is so much beauty here. But I hope this process has been helpful in that whole anchoring, in clarifying, in activating. These are practical tools to bring you through. And our goal is to bring you from overwhelm into overflow. They are synonyms. They are the same word. And how we walk through it, it matters. Now, I just want to remind you today that our choices today, what we do today, it is tied to a future reality, whether we want to acknowledge that or not. So the question becomes, do I want my one stressed out emotional day or this little season where I feel overwhelmed to shape my future reality? And has it already been doing that? Has your overwhelm, when it shows up because you're outside your comfort zone, is it talking you out of the growth that is required to catapult you into the next season, to what God has for you? And if the answer to that is yes, Sonny, that's what's been happening. Again, this is not a place for shame, but we get to say, hey, God, this is a place I want to take you by the hand. Lord, I want to believe that you are hovering over the waters of my life, over the place where there is disorder and chaos. And I believe that you have created me in your image, and you created the good works that are before me to do. And God, thank you for the indicator, for the overwhelm that is showing up right now in my life. Thank you that you can use this to redirect my current choices, that I might be able to grow the skills, the capacity, that I might be able to not allow this to continue to keep me in a wilderness of overthinking, in a wilderness of emotion, in a wilderness of feeling stuck because I refuse to grow. Hey, God, Will you help me to redirect my current choices? And I believe to questions like that, his answer is always yes and amen. God never grows weary of walking with you in the wilderness. He never grows weary of coming alongside you, fellowshipping with you. He never grows weary of helping you step into the process of being perfected. And I just want to be the voice to tell you, you're doing a great job. You are doing an awesome job, and you are seen by God. And He's going to pull you through, not in a place where you are just surviving, but you can actually thrive. And my prayer for you today is, may your overwhelm turn into overflow as you step into the abundant life that God has made you for. My prayer is freedom will become your story and redemption your song. Now it's time to take hope-filled action. And if today's episode spoke to you, please don't keep it to yourself. Like, subscribe, and share, and help us grow this community. Thanks for listening to Wild Hope Rising. Until next time, keep stepping boldly into the spacious life you were created for.